Welcome to Global Citizen Life podcast. Today on the show, we have Paula Harris. Paula, thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm thrilled to be here, Sally. Thanks for inviting me.
Paula, you are a financial planner. So, what are the biggest mistakes people make when planning their finances?
Well, the number one mistake would be not planning. And
I
too
almost
many
asked
people,
that. I
yeah.
almost said, what's the mistake with not planning? I'm like, that's probably the biggest mistake.
Yeah, when people don't plan or fail to plan, that is a plan. And
Mhm.
there's different reasons why people do that. People get caught up in the moment, and they want to enjoy life. Some people, it's a matter of like they are so razor thin that they just can't find a way to just put a little bit away. Some people, um, don't know the word or in there or either. And it's just always more and. Some people, there's, an inheritance coming and they say, I'll be fine. It'll be all set. There's going to be a life insurance policy, but those don't always come true. Sometimes you think that inheritance is going to come and you know what? That generation, they needed it to spend in their lifetime. So people who we call it planning around the bubble, think that they're going to have this big windfall. It doesn't often happen. So I'm a big believer in 100% personal accountability, and you are responsible for the decisions you make in your life. So you need to make sure you set yourself up for success.
Right, right. And it is true. No plan is still it's a decision. No decision is a decision. It's
Correct.
what's been done and it's not always easy. Um and I was at a seminar one time. This was many, many years ago, and the speaker said that he was working with a company and they asked about retirement, how you were going to retire. And I think it was a survey people just filled out
Yep.
the thing. And anyway, the top three, and I don't recall which order he said that they were in, but the top three were they were going to inherit
Yep.
money was their plan. They were going to win the lottery
Oh,
was
no.
another plan. And
Okay.
the third one, they were going to sue somebody. Those were the
Oh,
top
no.
three answers of retirement plans. And I just
Oh,
thought
no.
all of those are horrible because they like winning the lottery, the chances, come on, you can't,
Uh,
that's not a
get
plan.
struck by lightning. Yeah.
Suing somebody, well, really? I mean, that's not a plan either because even if you do, doesn't mean you're going to win or have enough to
Right.
retire. And that's just like
Well, and
bad
the bad
karma.
energy, yeah, bad karma, bad energy around that is like that money to me would be so tainted that, the karma that it would come back to you and not in a good way.
Right. And as you said, with inheritance, we don't always get that even and some people could think that there is insurance policies, but I know of some that you can have your life insurance policy, but then you can draw from that, so by the
Yep.
time the person passes, even though they did have at one point a fairly large policy, they've been drawing from that
Yep.
policy for many, many years, and there might not be much of a policy. Or we hear now like the reverse mortgage that
Mm-hmm.
for people when it's paid off, they're starting to pull out that equity. So when they pass, it's not a paid off property. There is now a mortgage that is owed on it, and therefore, as you said, the inheritance may not be what was
Yeah.
expected.
And the people who, like the life insurance policy owner may never tell anyone that they started to do that. And so people may say, is the life insurance paid up? And they say, yes, it is. But they didn't ask, what's the value? And there's also times where they've been embarrassed and they couldn't make the bills and they let it lapse, but they didn't tell anyone. So the surviving spouse is like, okay, I'm gonna get that policy now, and it's not there. So and I don't think people always mean to be deceitful, but they get themselves dug in somehow, and a
Right.
lot of people don't want to admit they got themselves into a hole.
Oh, absolutely, because there's unfortunately shame and embarrassment and
Oh,
things, and
yes.
so they don't tell, and then it becomes a deeper hole and a deeper hole, and then like,
Yeah.
if they cancel the policy and somebody's, in their 70s or 80s and that policy is now canceled, they're not gonna be
Or
getting a
even
new
50s.
or
Yeah.
less, yeah.
Yeah.
They won't. But, maybe at 50, they could get another policy again if things start to get better, but it becomes
Yeah.
more expensive and harder the older that people are.
Absolutely, because your health, it becomes a bigger factor, and so a
Right.
lot of people find that they're uninsurable later on because they've had some health issue come up that they may not have had when they were younger. So that, yeah, that's a very big issue. The other thing I think a lot of people think about for retirement is their home. We've had a massive inflation of homes in the US, at least especially on the highly desirable areas, the coasts. And so people are like, oh my gosh, I bought my house for 200,000. It's now worth 1.5 million. I'm going to sell it and downsize, and then I'll live off that. And then they go to look and they realize, oh my gosh, I'm used to this standard of living. And I can't, it's in order to stay in that, my downsized house is going to cost me 1.2 million. So suddenly there's not that cash that they thought they were going to have unless they decide to move to middle rural America or they move overseas, because there are definitely opportunities where costs are less overseas. And as we sort of talked about before we came on, is there's pros and cons to all of those strategies.
Yeah, that it's true. I even in Canada, my old neighbors, I'm still friends with them and talk with them, and they have a nice size house. It's not massive or anything like that, and very similar. The property values have gone up. It's worth a lot more, and they were thinking about downsizing, and they even said by the time we downsize to like even something that's smaller, the
Yeah.
price difference isn't that different.
Yep.
So they're like it's just not worth it. Like they can't, let's just say their place is worth 1,000,000. And if they downsize, they're still looking at 750,000.
Yeah.
Then
Where
and
I
they
think,
said for that, it's not really worth they're not sure if it's really worth it for them.
yeah, I think people also have to look at the all-in cost. So how
Right.
much does it cost to heat that house? The electricity for the bigger house, maintenance, do you have a garden that you have to pay someone to manage or cut your lawns? Are you in an area where the weather is really tough on it? It needs to be painted every 5 years instead of every 10. So sometimes people just look at the main cost of the downsizing of the house, but they don't look at what's your homeowner, your HOA association fee. What if you went to one that didn't have one? All those if different things to look at the
Right.
long-term savings, because sometimes we get so caught on just one number rather than the whole
Mhm.
impact.
Right. Yeah, because then it still can be on a monthly basis. Those expenses could be
Yeah,
substantially less. Yeah,
absolutely.
property taxes and everything too. Yeah, that is right.
Yeah, and then a lot of times moving one town to the next, the property taxes could be dramatically less. So that is a good thing to consider. You got to look at everything.
Right. And what about, do you find people, and it's a bit, I think it's one, I want to say it's a debatable one because in my head it's debatable because I'm just
Okay.
not sure. That people, you work and you get your retirement savings, whether it's like the 401k, I believe you have in the United States.
Hmm.
We have our RRSPs in Canada, and people are contributing to that. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but there's just part of me that wonders that with the direction of governments and who's controlling that, even when I do retire, is there going to be any money left in there for me? So is it something that I should be doing, or should I instead be taking that money and putting it in some other type of investment vehicle? But I know with every investment, there's always risk. So
Right.
there's no guarantee if I do like S&P 500 or if I put it in artwork or wine or vintage cars or like
Yep.
who knows, right? Like nothing is non-risk.
So I think, first of all, you want to make sure it's going to be liquid. So I'd be nervous, like if I invested in wine and I didn't store it properly, and then there's no market because I didn't take care of it properly, that wouldn't be so good. So you want to make sure,
Wouldn't be good.
or things went to hell in a handbag and the world and people are like, I just need to buy food for my table. I'm not going to worry about having investment wine. Nobody wants to buy that take it off your hands. So the question, yes, governments and retirement planning. The way we think about it here in the US is we're going to come up right up against the deadline. Politicians made a deal that lasted for 50 years. Will take us into the early 2030s, and they will not solve the Social Security problem until probably the hours before the year ends. And I think the biggest thing to remember is, I think in both our countries, people vote. And the people that vote the most are the people that are going to be usually more on the older side that are receiving these benefits. These politicians desperately want to get reelected. So the chances that it's going away entirely, I think, is zero. Will some type of change happen to them? That's probable. So could it be a change where, okay, you're just coming into the workforce and now instead of 67 being your full retirement age, it's now 70 or 72, which is not a crazy thing to think about given how much longer we're living. So,
Mm.
when Social Security and those type of social programs were put in place, people were not living very long. You know, the German system was literally trying to force people out of the workforce because they had so many young people they needed to give jobs. They wanted people out. People would live a couple of years and they would die. Now we have a reverse problem. We're living a really long time in retirement. So I think with an employer-sponsored plan, there's a couple of things to think about. One, if there's a match, you're absolutely crazy not to do it to get the match. That's free money. As I talk about a lot of times when I give talks, if you saw $20 on the ground, would you just walk by it?
Oh, I'd
No,
pick it up.
exactly. $100, I picked up a nickel this morning. Um, that's free money. So when you don't participate in a retirement plan, you are literally just like letting money just blow in the wind.
Mhm.
So the next question is is it pre-tax or post-tax? So one of the things, our tax is going to be lower in the future or higher. And I think, again, both our countries have gone on spending sprees. We have given a lot of money. We've spent a lot of money on just increasing social programs, so more people are getting different subsidies or reimbursements from the government. So it's expensive. So I think our taxes will probably be higher. So you could make the decision, okay, I'm gonna just say I'm gonna bite the tax bullet. So we have the option of something called a Roth um, contribution in a 401k, a 403b, an IRA, which means I already paid the taxes and it's gonna grow tax-free and it's gonna come out tax-free. So when you think about having money
Okay.
coming out in a retirement plan tax-free, that's like magic.
Okay.
So we are so conditioned over the last couple of decades to put money into the pre-tax so we get a tax deduction now. But I think more people are starting to say, geez, you know what? I'll just bite the bullet and pay the tax now because taxes will probably be higher in the future. So that's one way to think about it too. But we talk a lot about diversifying across tax strategies. So you might want to open a brokerage account and put money in there as well. Right now, CDs are paying a decent rate, but go back 2 or 3 years, they were barely paying anything. So that maybe not, that's going to be an ebb and flow strategy, whether that works. So treasuries or something that's sort of super, super safe. Um, I always look at the liquidity. So you want to be able, if the stuff hits the fan, how do I get out? Um,
Right.
I have a client, it's like, I need a couple $100,000 because we're moving overseas and I need it in 2 weeks. Okay. Um, if you put somebody in a product, which we don't do, like a real estate investment trust, and you can only get out once a year, that would be a problem.
Right.
So you want to make sure, if you put something into artwork, is there a market to get it quickly? Um,
Mhm.
so I think there's just lots of different things. The other thing people often talk about are precious metals, like I'm going to own gold or silver. Well, is there a marketplace for you to easily trade that in. And people are like, I want to have gold bars. And we're like, okay, Armageddon has come. I want food. I have a gold bar. Am I going to chip off the gold bar to give it to you to get food from you?
Right.
So like the practicality, because people a lot of times are thinking about these, doomsday scenarios too.
Mhm.
So there's lots of things in there, but saving in multiple buckets, I think is a big deal. And we talk a lot about having the emergency savings in the bank.
Mm.
So that's 3 to 6 months of living expenses, not invested. If you put it in say a CD and you can break it and you just would lose the interest, okay, but you got to be able to get at this money like today.
Right, in
That's
case
a
you lose your job or something happens, then
Yep,
okay, I'm okay. I don't have to panic and add extra stress and everything. It's like
absolutely.
I've got some time because I got this cash, and then some other things of okay, well, I've got the cash to last me, as you said, that 3 to 6 months, and then from there, if it's not going to be enough, and I'm realizing it, then I've got, I'll just say it, investment A that
Yep,
I can cash out in about 6 months time. So I've got that kind of 3 to 6. And then investment B is more of the once a year type thing. And the investment C's are the oops, almost knocked my light over there. The investment C's are that kind of more long term, where maybe it is actual real estate. And
yep,
if you have to sell, I mean, we don't want to ever have to sell because then we are at risk of what the economy and everything is doing, whether, if we've got that house, rental property, whatever, that's oh, the market's doing really well. I'm wanting to get out. I can choose to, or, oh, let's wait till next year. Those are kind of those, I call them like the C in investments of
yeah.
term wise.
But I think we also have to be careful. I mean, we own investment property. Yesterday, the call came that there's no hot water. Like, you've got to know,
Mm-hmm.
can you, handle it? Or like, oh my gosh, there's tree roots coming through the sewage lines. Is your temperament for that? Or, around the corner from me, there was a duplex and there was a fire on one side. On the other side, the people had bought it, rehabbed it, and it went on the market like 2 weeks before that. They lost it. It is literally sitting now with the windows open. The place is all fire burnt, and it's been that way for 6 or 8 months. If that would happen, how could you handle it? Or let's say this example with the wildfires in LA lately.
Oh,
Oh my
yeah.
gosh, I live in the most beautiful place. Nothing ever happens to our real estate.
It only goes
You-
up.
Right, it only goes
It
up.
only
And
goes
then
up.
a natural disaster. Where I live, it's now closed, but there was a nuclear power plant. And people would be like, "Oh, that's not in my town." Well, you right across the bay from it. So if something were to happen, this was all highly desirable neighborhoods, you would be affected too. So again, you don't know. You have a chemical spill. I mean, I think it was in Ohio, trains
Yes.
flipped over in the chemical spills. Like you could have a perfectly normal place and something could happen. So I still believe in real estate, but I think when people put all their, so much hope in so much like it's always going to go up. If you're on
But
a
it
side of a
doesn't.
hill, yeah,
Yeah,
you
well,
could
look at
slide
even
in.
like the bubble of 2008,
Yep. Oh, right. Tons of
right?
properties.
Like that, and that
Yep.
was just like that came out of I can't
I
for
don't,
most people it came out of nowhere.
right.
But it's something that and everything has cycles and you have to
Yes.
ride it out. Same with stocks and the stock market.
Yep.
There's booms and busts.
Yep.
It's doing great, then it's not. And everything is, and especially to even with real estate, whether you're the landlord and you're doing it yourself, that's
Yep.
like a whole new level of things you need to be prepared for and the calls and the everything, as you said. Or if it's the REIT investments and you're more hands off, but then can you only pull out once a year? But
Yep.
again, if there's a natural disaster that comes through hurricanes, tornadoes, fires. I mean, all of those things happen.
Right.
Places get taken out. Then what? So there really there really is and leaving it in the bank with inflation, you're losing money
Is
anyway. So I mean, there's no perfect solution, unfortunately.
right.
That's what makes finances. I think that's why too people, for lack of better terms, kind of stick their head in the sand because it just sounds like, well, it could go wrong in every single way, every single investment. And yes, that's true, but that's why we need to be smart about it and
Yes.
realize what it can. And I think, as you said, having that 3 to 6 months cash in the bank will help if we do lose our job, if unexpected bills come up, medical cost or something, then we have that. So we're not then forced to sell or
Yeah.
get rid of our investment in a time that's not ideal. We could then maybe ride it out. We have that money in the bank, things get better, and then maybe we still haven't built up that bank account yet, but when that gold goes back up, we can then sell the gold bars because we're not trying to exchange them for food,
Right.
and sell them to kind of get that nest egg and cash in the bank back and kind of work it that way. And it's something we really need to be aware of and on top of all the time. We have to be
Yeah.
watching what's going on and checking our investments and accounts and seeing, how much we can put in a variety of investments.
Yeah. You wanna know the hardest part of our job as financial planners?
What?
It's not picking, the right investment. It's behavior management.
Ah,
It's
yes.
clients coming to us saying, "This time it's different." And those, like, the worst
Well,
words to
I
hear
shouldn't
because
laugh. That's
yeah,
but
no, but it's true. But, we get ourselves we have something called confirmation bias. If we think
yes.
the stock market's going down, we will just listen to everything that says it's gonna go down. Or real estate's the
Mm,
greatest thing ever. We're only listening to that. We get
right.
so caught in our own heads and emotions that we can't get out to the point. I mean, we have seen people get so worked up, like so and so president just got elected. I know it, the stock market's gonna tank. I'm pulling all my money out. And then it's like, oh, great. When are you gonna go back in? Oh, there's never gonna be the day that feels good. And they sit for 2, 3 years. Meanwhile, things went up. So
Mhm.
helping people understand that it's really like you have to set a plan and you have to put your blinders on to say, it doesn't matter. Like, I want this to be able to live this lifestyle. And it
Mhm.
doesn't matter that there's fires in, LA. It doesn't matter that there's hurricanes in Florida. It doesn't matter that gold's up or down or that Bitcoin went up or down. And if the average person who wants to buy Bitcoin can explain what it does, that should be the first thing requirement. But anyway, that's an aside. But like, okay, it doesn't matter. All these other things. You have a plan, and is your plan coming to fruition that you can live the life that you want? Don't worry about the noise. 'Cause
Right.
it's so much noise, but I've got what I need get what I want in life. And again, you said it earlier, the bank, people think there's safety in the bank. Well, there's a couple of things. Safety is your inflation, yeah, you can get eaten alive because you're getting
Mhm.
and people don't pay attention that if they're in that checking account or that savings account that's still paying point 0.1, like they didn't bother to move it to a higher yield, or banks have gone under. I mean, they usually get
Yes.
rescued, but it's not a foolproof nothing's foolproof.
Nothing is foolproof. And
Yep.
even speaking of banks, like, I've got many bank accounts at a variety of banks, and there's great European banks, that give 3% on anything. If I had €100 in
Oh,
it, I get
wow.
3.5%.
Wow.
And there's banks out there, and so sometimes now I'm not saying for everybody to move all of it, but,
Yeah.
"Oh, okay, well, I've got X amount. Maybe that's my six-month fund is just sitting there,
Yep.
and it's getting, 2, 3, 4% depending upon which currency it's
Yep.
in, and I've got a card. I've got a debit card. I can use it whenever I want, so if I need it, it's there. I still have my local account for my mortgage, my bills,
Yep.
my whatever, and it's another way that there are other banks that do actually give more. Like, my Canadian
Yeah.
bank, I have minuscule money in there because it doesn't give me anything. So,
Right.
I have enough that a few payments come out, and when money comes in, I pull it out right away, except for to cover that because I know I'm getting, at least, a bit of interest in
Yep.
another account.
Yeah. But
Even
and yet
even
you
if I
have
have
to
to
think
pay
that
a
way.
fee to move it, the interest that I get ends up being more than the small fee.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think
So-
people, they don't know what they don't know. So you
right.
just gave a bunch of information. I don't tend to look at like European banks, so I just learned something. And I think, you know, surround yourself with advisors, community,
Mhm.
people that are experts in what they do so that you're not getting caught with your emotions or you're trying to learn everything and become an expert. You have a team of people to help you. And I think especially, that financial professional, the accounting professional, the legal professional, and then what else is it that you want to do? Like I think you're helping people figure out how to live their sort of their dream life around the world, wherever they want to be, and figuring that out. I have a client right now who's moving to Germany, her and her husband, from the US to live there. And, they've done it before, so they probably know their way. But if it was the first time, it'd be like, oh my gosh, you need to seek out Sally. Because why take the shortcuts, take the person who's the expert, who has seen the long view, and
Right.
can help you weather the hiccups of the day to day.
Of course, because like with everything, we don't know what we don't know.
Yep.
So unless you're a financial expert, and even some financial experts don't know everything, and there isn't
Oh,
no crystal ball of the here's the market, this is what it's going to do, here's
right.
the whatever. And then of course, when it does come to international moves, then really tax experts are important. Um, Coming from the United States, people have to file every year, no matter where they live.
Yep.
They're allowed a certain amount of money that's tax free when they live abroad, but anything over and above that, and I think at this time it's $120,000. Um, if you have a bank account that has over $10,000 in it, you have to file what they call an F bar. That's letting the government know that you have the account and how much money's in it. You don't have to pay tax on that. It's just
Yep.
letting them know there's an F bar. If you have any foreign, even if you're living in the United States and you have an account, let's say in Spain, and you have over $10,000 in it, every year you have to file an F bar saying, "I have an account. This is where it's at. This is how much money's in it." Just because they want to
Mm-hmm.
keep track of you and all your money.
Yep.
As a Canadian, we don't have that. Once we leave Canada and we file our final taxes and do up everything, and it's not just you leave and it's your last normal tax return and you're done. I mean, there's in both countries, there's final taxes that you have to and things that you have to state leaving, and you no longer have more economic ties. And so there's a number of things that if you don't do it right, the government can come after you and say, wait a minute, you're still a tax citizen here, a
Yeah.
tax resident here. And you can be like, no, I'm not. I haven't lived there in years. I'm like, well, you owe us taxes for years. And then you have to go back and prove it. And it does become a nightmare. So
I
once
would
you
think so.
exit the right way, and then, if there's depending upon how you're getting paid, tax treaties and things like that. So it is important to work with somebody who knows to make sure it's done right, because you don't want all of a sudden get a letter in the mail and all of a sudden it's
Surprise.
surprise, you owe us back taxes for 5 years plus interest. And you're like, no,
Yeah.
I left. I'm not living there anymore. I'm not a resident, but you forgot to do a few things.
Yeah.
And the
And that's
government
not
is
good.
not very nice and friendly and being like, oh, it was an honest mistake. It's okay.
Right. Yeah, that's what they all say.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, but
exactly.
they do hold the power chip in the end.
They do. And they want money because they spend a lot of it.
Yeah, absolutely. They do spend a lot of it. And
So
and
it
I'm
is important.
hearing, I do know a lot of people want to try to not to pay so many taxes, so they're thinking about moving other places. Uh, You know, you could also spend your whole life avoiding or chasing something when sometimes you make it very complicated. I know some people that are thinking about, moving to an island, but they own three properties in the US, and they like, are you going to divest of all those so that you can afford to live in the island? And then if that doesn't work out, how you come back, and it's all to avoid taxes, paying not so many taxes, but then they also turn around and vote for all the people who want to put all the taxes in. So it's like, like,
That doesn't make sense.
yeah, right. Like half of California's leaving, but they're the ones who all voted the taxes, and then they're going to other states and like, wait a minute, we want more services. Like,
Right. It's like,
That comes with a
let's think about
cost.
this for a minute. Well, and you're absolutely right about that. Like, because I would say all the time too that I can help people get down to zero taxes, but you have to be willing to live in certain countries, certain ways, having um, your company in other specific countries, and it can be done. And some people are okay with the limited options of countries where you can
Yep,
live to do that. Some people are not. And I um I read an article a few weeks ago from a guy who moved to Cyprus just to save taxes. And he's like, I'll never move just to save taxes again. Living on the island costs more. It was more of a hassle getting there. And I mean, he just didn't like living in Cyprus. And I just thought,
yep,
well, why would you move somewhere if you don't like it just to save taxes if it's a hassle and a nightmare and you don't like it, there is no point. Like that doesn't make sense. You
right.
still need to live where you want. And even just yesterday, I was talking with a client and he's like, well, I'm thinking about, going here, but the taxes are this amount. And I don't know because there's this place and, going through a few bits. And I said to him, I said, you know what? What is your sanity worth? What
Right.
is your ease and convenience of doing your business, sending money to the bank, getting money out of the bank? How are you getting paid from your clients to getting money into the bank and getting paid? Like, what's your sanity worth? Because you can go to these no tax countries. Some of them are easier to work in than others, or you can
Mhm.
go to the one that he's thinking. I'm like, it's a very low tax rate. It's a very well-known country, and it's very good for business, for entrepreneurs, for everything. So you're paying a little bit. What's your convenience, your ease,
Yeah,
and your mental worth, like, you don't wanna be frustrated and angry every day because there's some type of banking issue or problem or getting your money or sending or your client can't pay or like, that's a hassle that's not worth it.
yeah, it's
So,
very true.
and then where do you wanna live? You can live in these territorial tax countries where you don't pay taxes on any income that's made outside of the country. You only pay it if you're inside the country, which for some can be great and they're reasonable countries and their business isn't within that country anyway. But again, then you're limited to certain countries. But if you want to be in a specific country, and most European countries, you're going to be paying more in taxes.
Yep.
But as you said, it comes back to what you said when we first started is looking at the big picture. Because I know some people say, oh, wow, you know, um, certain ones have programs for reduced rates. But just for an example, they'd be like, oh, well, I'm going to move to Spain, but it's like 47% tax. That's ridiculous. I'm only paying X amount in the United States. Like, yes, okay, but how much are you paying in healthcare?
Mhm.
Where are you gonna be living? Do you want a car? Because if you're where in Barcelona, for example, I never had a car in Barcelona, didn't need one. So now I don't have a car payment, I don't have insurance, I don't have parking, I don't have if I wanna rent a car, I can rent them by the hour with
Yep,
some places or for the weekend or whatever. So how much am I saving not having a car? So what are you paying for your car if you're gonna live in a city?
yeah,
How much are you paying for your healthcare insurance? Okay, how much are you paying for your taxes? How much is your day-to-day cost of living, groceries, whatever? Like, how much are you paying every single month compared to then what you're gonna be paying every single month? Because if you just look at taxes, well, yeah, okay, you're paying more in taxes. But then there's a number of things that you're paying for in the
yeah,
United States that you're not gonna be paying for in Spain, for example.
yeah,
And I'm
and I
not
don't
saying Spain because I think people should go there because they've just announced that they're gonna try to do 100% tax on non-EU people trying to buy a house in Spain. So
oh
unless you're
boy,
gonna buy one, like, right now, I would wait and
reconsider. Yeah.
maybe reconsider because it might not be worth it.
Yeah. Oh, and then let's just say you do that, and you get that house now, and
Yep.
I mean, I've heard stories, and you'll know better than I, but that people in Barcelona, tourists, so non-natives, were, like, literally almost being tortured, like, yelled at, um, different, deterrent activities, that if you live there, are those activities gonna happen to you anyhow? I don't know.
I mean, I don't know because like, I wasn't a tourist because I have residency,
Yep,
but walking down the street, people would assume I'm a tourist,
right.
right? Because you don't know who has residency, who doesn't. I personally never experienced something like towards me myself. But lots of times, yeah, there's signs up, spray painted on the ground, tourists go home, tourists go away. Um, it's not, and sometimes you feel that energy. It doesn't always feel like a welcoming
Yeah.
city. And I've got some friends there that some are still enjoying it. Some are like, well, I might go elsewhere.
The shine is
Um,
off. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and you really have to look at. You can't just move somewhere without going there. First
Yep.
of all, and you
That's very
can't
true.
go there with vacation sunglasses on
Yep.
because when you're on vacation, I've been to 50 countries and they've all been great. I
Yep.
wouldn't want to live in all of them, but they've been great for vacation.
Yes.
And so we need to look at that, and you need to really look at the politics and the energy of being there, because you could be in Barcelona and get one type of energy and something different in Madrid and something completely feeling a different way down in Malaga
Yep.
or, a different area. And so you have to go and see if it resonates with you and spend some time there and be like, is this okay for me? Do I want to live here? Do I like this lifestyle? Um, in different places of different. Everyone's like, "Oh, I want a slower pace of life." But then when they're actually in a slower pace of life, they're like,
Oh,
"Oh, I want it when it's convenient for me, but if I need my fridge fixed, I want it done now. I want my car fixed now. I want this done now. I want this, but
right.
I want a slower pace of life." It's like, it doesn't work
Yeah.
that way.
Right.
So,
Right. But I think your
you
advice
have
of
to think.
try it out before you financially commit is a big deal. Like, don't buy something and having never gone there just because you think it's financially going to be a better deal for you. Because, to get out of an unhappy situation can cost you more, and that's not
Absolutely.
worth it.
That's right. Yeah, it is. It's really like looking at the big picture. And I often, even some people I say this, they say, "I want to move abroad." Why? Why do
Yep.
you want to move? Because sometimes we don't really realize it. We say we want something different, we want to change, we're not happy. Right? Makes sense. Okay, but
Yep.
then why? Because if it turns out that you just want to change because you're not happy, and about 6 months after all the newness wears off, you're going to be like, "Oh, I'm here by myself. I'm not happy." And if
Yeah,
you're
it's an
not
internal
happy with
issue.
you,
Yep.
you are with you everywhere you go, and it turns out you might be the problem, not your
It's true.
location,
It's very
right? And
true.
I say that jokingly but truthfully because I've seen people move and they sell all their stuff. One time in Costa Rica, they were from the United States. They sold all their stuff. They bought a house. They bought a pizza restaurant. And then one day, it was about 6 or so months later, was talking with my daughter, and then I was like, "Well, what about so and so from school?" She's like, "Oh no, they're moving." I'm like, "No, they just moved here 6 months ago." "Yeah, no, they're moving back to the United States. They're leaving." I'm like, "Oh
Oh,
my gosh, the financial hit
yes.
that would have been on both sides because you sell all your stuff because most times we're not bringing all of our stuff because we can buy it unless it's some sentimental things. It's generally not worth shipping
Yeah.
halfway around the world or wherever you're going to then buy all new stuff again, to then sell it and buy it all again. And I've done it now like four times and I'm doing it
Okay.
again. But I am aware I don't buy a lot of stuff and
Yep.
I look at things a little bit differently because I know doing it. And even over the last year since I've been thinking about moving again, I'm like, I'd look at something and be like, "Oh, that's yeah, don't buy it because you might be moving. You don't
Yep.
need more stuff to move, you don't need more stuff to pack, and really, Sally, you don't need anything, so don't buy it." And
Yep.
it's
It's
kind
very
of
smart.
nice that way that I don't really buy because I'd rather have experiences
Yeah, and I
and
think
do
more people
things.
will benefit from that philosophy. We
Mm,
fill a lot of us have holes in our lives and we don't know what to fill it with, so we fill it with stuff.
yep,
And like you said, you're still with you, and if you haven't fixed the problem of you, then that's going to be an issue. And I'm just thinking too that this family that opened the pizza place or bought the pizza place likely probably never ran a restaurant either. And like like you suddenly go, this is great. Everyone needs pizza, but I have to work 7 days a week. 18 hours a day. Oh my gosh, I didn't factor that in. I'm not making any money. I'm not happy. I have no free time. They don't think about all the pieces. And
Right.
yeah, a mistake is very costly.
Yeah.
And how do you learn from it?
Yeah. Well, hopefully not making a mistake is the initial, right?
Yes,
So to
exactly.
doing research, or, if you want to open a restaurant, save money ahead of time, go work in a restaurant
Yep. I
to
talked to a woman
really
who's
see
doing
what
that.
it's like.
Yep. She was moving from California to, I think it was New Mexico, and she went to open like a health food restaurant. She's like, she went and worked for someone pretty inexpensively to learn the business before she just jumped in and did it. And I never heard from her again, so I don't know how it worked out, but she was totally changing. She was coming out of like banking. So it was, and
Wow.
she was single and she was like in her late 50s. I mean, it's a major life change to move, you know, from the coast to the interior, like all these different things. But I think she was doing it right. She was planning. She was going from a high expense place to a lower expense place, and she was going to test it out before she made her final commitments. So I think that is wise.
It is wise because sometimes too, whenever anything is new, we have more energy, right?
Yes.
We're new, we're excited, we're going to do this, it's going to be great. And then after a few months, when the newness wears off, the long days settle in, the headaches happen, or when you see like working in a restaurant, dealing with bad people, they're never happy, some clients, your orders don't come in on time, food's gone bad, it's wasted. Like there's so many things to think about, and staff doesn't show up. I mean, there's
Yep.
so many that or you're there and you're there
Yep.
whatever it is, 18 hours until you can hire somebody you trust, that, it's a tough business. But it can be done, and people do it. And
Absolutely.
it's like everything too, even with online stuff. If you're in a brick and mortar employee and you want to try something different, you want to be doing things online, start now. Start
True.
doing some stuff online, start learning now. You still got that paycheck coming in, you got things going, and then you can decide what you like about it, maybe what you don't like. And then once you're making money and things, to transition then and quit the job. That's kind of the best way to do it.
Yeah. That just an idea just popped in my head. I met a woman on a plane who was going to house sit. She lives in Maine. She's just going to go house sit. I think it was like California. And she was going to do it for a couple of weeks to months. And like, what a great way to test out living somewhere else without the
Mm,
commitment of I've moved and sold everything. So I think there's other ways to sort of get your fix of like, I want to live somewhere else.
yes.
Test it, see if it makes sense. Because like you said, you've been to 50 countries, you love them all. But would you if you spent a month there, you know? We
Yeah.
we
Some of them
decided
know.
yeah, exactly. We decided during COVID to move to Nantucket. So we moved there for 8 months. We got a winter rental, and it was like, I thought about would I ever want a second home here. And after the winter, I actually liked island life. I was totally fine with not. My husband couldn't stand that he couldn't drive more than like 30 miles an hour. He hated that he couldn't go to a big box store. I loved a lot of that. But
Mm,
what drove me crazy was like I hated the one grocery store. It was like I just, you know, I don't like not having choice. But we also realized like life was really expensive out there. And I enjoy it, but I think I'm gonna be much happier somewhere else. And so it was a great experiment. It proved a lot of things for us, and I had an experience.
I think it's great. So 2 points with that. I do a lot of house and pet sitting. I've
Ah,
traveled to many, many countries taking care of people's cats and dogs,
yep.
and it's a great way to check out new places and travel. And for me, I get my pet fix. I grew up with pets, so
Oh
I
yeah.
absolutely love that, and I do it, fairly often, actually. I still do a lot of it. And then, yeah, to come back to the Nantucket or anywhere people are, like, when I'm looking, I always think about what is my return on investment
Yep.
when I'm looking to move somewhere. And it's not totally a financial number. It is, what is my cost of living to be here. So my housing, my food, all of that kind of stuff. There's those costs, right?
Yep.
Doesn't matter where we live, there's costs. But with those costs, what am I getting in return? Am I getting healthcare or access to inexpensive healthcare? What activities are there that I love to do? Can I go hiking? Can I go jogging? Do they
Yep.
have lots of gyms? Do they have co-working space? Because I work from home and I don't want to be home all the time. Yeah,
Yep.
when I'm doing podcasts and things like that, absolutely. But then I only schedule them a couple days a week because I want to be in co-working. I want to be around other people. I'm very
Yep.
social. What's the weather like? Coming from Canada, it might surprise people, but I hate winter. I don't want to be in cold minus anything. Like
Yep.
I just don't. And so I have a bit of a checklist of things that I like and that I want. And so if I'm paying X amount to be somewhere, that's fine. But am I getting a lifestyle that I want? Here in Montenegro, I've got a place here, and I had mentioned I just put it for sale. Um, it was great for the time that I've been here. I've enjoyed it, but at this point now, I've decided, and I was offered money to purchase it last year, and I was like, no, I'm didn't want to. But now
Yep.
I'm like, okay, I'm done here, like, and not
Yep.
in a bad way. It's a beautiful country. It's small, but for me now, it's just too small, too boring. I'm
Yep.
really ready for a new stage chapter of life and looking for other things. But now it's my choice, and I'm like, well, I could rent it or I could sell. I'll put it on the market, see what happens.
Yeah.
But because my return, and even though it's very inexpensive to live here, like really
Yeah.
inexpensive, I'm bored. I'm not
Right.
happy. So it doesn't matter. And I do believe that in this place is going to be worth way more in the next 5 to 10 years. Way more.
Yep.
Absolutely. But do I want to wait 5 or 10 years? I mean, there's no guarantee. I could be wrong with my speculation.
Yep.
I could get hit by a bus next year and die. So
Yep.
what
And
does
you
it
weren't doing
matter
what
what
you
it's going to
wanted
be
to do.
like here in 10 years?
Yeah. Right. You and you in that time you want to do what you want you and want to enjoy life and to the criteria that you've defined.
Yeah, exactly.
So
And
I
so
think that's a great lesson.
it is. I mean, it's important for us to plan for the future because I've said since I was a teenager that I was going to live till I'm 120. When I was a teenager, people
Woo!
told me I was stupid. They're like, nobody lives that long. You're so dumb. And I'm like, you just wait. I just know. It's a feeling I had in my soul.
I'm
Now,
gonna
I
live
mean,
to 134, so
wow, okay.
yep.
And I mean, it is very possible. So now when I
Yes,
say
it
to people,
is.
they're like, oh, maybe. But when I was in my teens, then people thought I was dumb. So I need to plan for that.
Right.
But at the same point, it might not happen.
Right.
And I'm not gonna plan and nickel and dime and penny pinch my entire life just in case it might. I still
Yep.
want to enjoy and do things, but then it comes down to what do I need over what do I want?
Yep.
And I don't need big house because as we've talked earlier, the bigger house costs more to buy, costs more to clean, costs more to maintain, costs more to
Yeah.
furnish. I mean, it's plus, 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 plus,
Yep.
where I would rather have smaller, convenient, nice, but I love being outdoors in the
Yep. Me
sunshine
too.
and the warm weather and things like that. So I don't, I mean, other than my ideal is to have a very large dining room because I love
Ah,
hosting dinner parties.
yep.
Outside of dinner parties, it's like, no, I want to be out.
Yeah.
So I could have a
And
small place with a big dining room. That's all I need.
yeah. And then also it could be an outdoor dining room if you're living in nice places, warm places. And then the fact that you can just shut your door and you can go pet sit for somebody for
Mhm.
a long period of time, it means you have that freedom too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and last year, so I've had this place now for about 3 years, and I think over 3 years, I don't even think I've spent 9 months here
Oh, wow.
because I
Yep.
do travel a fair amount. Now I'm hoping with the next place though, I will settle down more and spend more time and be there more. But we'll see.
Yeah. I don't know what life has in store for us, but I think having a good base plan allows
Yes,
us to then take advantage of the opportunities that come. And you do need
absolutely.
money for that.
That's right. There's ways to reduce the amount. Pet sitting's a great one to do
Yep.
it. The right planning, making sure we do things, not buying a lot of stuff that we don't need. So there's definitely things, good investments for over time. Um, Definitely ways for it to be manageable. Um, but Paula, I want to thank you very much for your time today. But before we wrap up and go, if people wanted to get in touch with you, they want some help with their financial planning, maybe they're just starting out or feeling a little bit of like, "Ooh, I should have started earlier," but hey,
Yep.
now is better than never. What is the best place for them to reach you or be in touch with you?
Sure. Our website is whcornerstone.com, and we have a LinkedIn page, a Instagram page, and a Facebook page as well that can follow. We put out lots of tips. We've got a newsletter, and then I do, have a YouTube channel as well, so lots of tips on that. So I'm pretty accessible. And I just did a TEDx talk,
Oh,
which is
wow.
very exciting on the low tech love, the power of the handwritten note. So folks can watch that as well.
Perfect. And we'll make sure to have links to all of that in the show notes to make it even easier for people to connect with you.
Thank you,
So,
Sally. This was a lot of
and
fun.
yeah, it was. Thank you very much for your time today.
My pleasure.